Okay, for those students that are following along at home, I have shared with you a Google Sheet. You should have gotten an email notification that you can use, or go to Google Drive and look in the Shared With Me folder. The copy I sent you is a view-only copy, so you will need to go to File and Make a Copy, and then that's the copy you need to pay attention to where you're saving that. Like, you can go back to Sheets to get to it. So let's, I'll do that. I'll just make another copy. So this will be, I'm going to take the copy off the front, and this will be the video, my caps lock's on, video demo. Okay? So you have a spreadsheet called Intro to Spreadsheets and Stats, and this one is my video demo version. Okay? So that's going to open the copy in a new tab, and I'm going to go close the other one out, so I just kind of have the main one. So when you open that, there are multiple tabs. Okay, so we are mostly going to work on this practice calculation sheet, but I've got an extra sheet here because I wanted people to see a blank worksheet. So this is an application called a spreadsheet. Google Sheets, right, is the one we're on. Microsoft Excel is probably the most popular one on the planet. A spreadsheet is made up of rows and columns that, where intersect, you have these little boxes in there called cells, and each cell is a little storage container for information or data. It could be text, it could be numbers, etc. So that's what a blank one might look like. So here I've got one kind of created that reminds me of all the little basic things I want to cover and introduce you to here to start. And I've got some room to put some of the things we're going to do. I've got another little practice area over here. So first idea, I just wanted to kind of make sure you know that basically a spreadsheet, different than a word processor, is that it's made up of all these little cells. Now each of these cells has a name. The name is simply the name of the, it's a combination of the row and the, I'm sorry, that's the column. I misspoke. The column that it sits under and the row it lines up with. Let me try one more time here. So this cell right here, right underneath practice area, is in column N, and it is in row 4, and so it's called N4. And if I select that one, you'll see right over here on my screen, I see N4. And if I move that cursor around, just my arrow keys, you'll see that it changes, N5, N6, N7. If I go to the right, it's now O and P and Q. Okay, so just for accountability that you're doing this with me, I would want you to type into N4, this is cell N4. Pause this video wherever you need to catch up. The next thing I want you to know is how to adjust the width of a column. Okay, the width of a column can be adjusted by going to the right edge of the column header name. So where you have the letter there, that's the name of the column. You go to the right edge and you can click and hold and drag it. So why don't you try changing the row width? I keep saying row, the column width. Okay. Another way you can do it with that same little place is to double click. If you double click, it auto adjusts its size to fit kind of the longest thing in that column. So let me just kind of add some gibberish that's longer so you can see that this column is not wide enough to fit this that is in N7. And so if I double click here, it's going to auto adjust and it should get wider so that that fits within the column. Okay? And if I got rid of that, it doesn't need to be as wide anymore. So I double click. So that's a really nifty, handy way to make the column change and kind of keep everything kind of compact. The last way is if I right click on the column header, there is an option to resize the column. This is great if I want two columns to be exactly the same. It might be hard to manually move them around with your cursor. They might visually look the same, but they may not be exactly the same. Okay, so if you want to be precise, that's a great way. So there you go. You've now named cells, or at least seen what their names are, and seen how to adjust column widths. Cool. All right, the next thing is I want us to see how to control our cursor. So obviously I can just use my arrows, so just try using your arrows, la-di-da, kind of cool, right? But what if I hold down the control key as I press 1? Whoop, oh, what just happened? Where am I? Column, I'm in column AG. That's past the end of the alphabet, right? If you notice this alphabet, so I went way to the right. What if I hit control, was holding control down, and then hit down? Oh, where am I? I'm still in comma R, but I'm in row, look over here to the left, I'm in row 103, or 1003. I'm way, way down, right? I could page up for a long time and kind of get my way back up, or I can hit hold Control and press up, and I snap back to the top. So what did Control do? Maybe come over to the data set and try holding Control and pressing the arrow key and maybe kind of figuring out what's happening. So what's happening, right? What is it? It's jumping to the end of a set. So if I have a set of cells all in a line that all contain information, it jumps to the end of that. If I'm in an empty set, so I'm in a string of cells where there's nothing, it's going to jump to the end of that emptiness. So it's going to it knows I'm in an empty cell and all these next cells are empty, so it's trying to get to the end of that like row or range of cells that are all empty. And in this case, going down, it kind of takes me to the end of my worksheet. Okay, now worksheets can be longer than 1,003 rows, but for now that's the default they gave us to work with. We could add later. And if I went to the right, that's why it's taking me out to the column AG. You might note that that's what happens when you get to the end of the alphabet. You just use the alphabet again, but now they put an A in front of each letter of the alphabet. A, B, A, 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 B, A, C, A, D. What do you think comes after A, Z? You've exhausted an A in front of the whole alphabet, and we will go to the next letter in the alphabet, B. And it would begin B, A, B, 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 C, B, D, etc. Okay? If you added more columns. So, holding down the Control. So what I want you to do is, with me, is I want you to right here type, what does this do? So like arrow just kind of moves cursor, right? Pretty easy. Moves cursor to the next cell. Be a little more specific. If we hold Control, then it jumps the cursor to the end of a set. And if you're in an empty set, it's going to jump to the end of the empty set. So let's try coming over here where we're not off the screen, kind of going back to the left. So if I go to the left without Control, it just kind of goes one at a time. But if I hold Control and then press left, it's going to jump over all those empty cells and get to the end of this empty set in the left, kind of going in the left direction. See that? So it kind of jumped over all these. The end of this set of emptiness is to be there. Okay? Now, what if I hold down Shift? So press Shift. Go ahead and press it. And then start moving your arrows. Highlights, selects. Yeah, I can go up and down. I can go left or right. What if I go right or left and then up and down? So I'm holding down Shift the whole time, okay? So this allows you to highlight a group of cells that are connected. They're all together, right? Whether they're all in a column, or they're all in a row, or they're all in a table. Okay? All right, what if I use Control and Shift at the same time? Well, let's think. Control is supposed to jump to the end. Shift is going to highlight. Let's come over to my data set. And I'm just going to right here, Control and Shift, and press down. Jump to the end and highlight it. Now, if I wanted the whole data set, I probably need to move my cursor to the top and then press Control Shift and down. And to move to the top or bottom, before I begin that, maybe I would hit Control, right? And kind of use Control to snap up or down. But you got to be careful. You've got column headers, so you don't want to, if you're trying to like do something with that set of data, I might not want to include the word data set or the column header. So I might, after snapping to the end, I might kind of fix that before I then hit Control and Shift, hold it, and get that. Now I've got the entire data set selected. Cool. So these are just things that people who use spreadsheets every day do without even thinking. So Control and Shift. This will highlight to the end of a set. All right, now mouse click and drag. So mouse click, that means like click, hold, and drag is what I really meant. All right, is the same as holding Shift in the arrows. So highlights a group of cells that are connected. All right, what about Control and clicking? Let's just hold Control right now and start clicking cells. It's letting me highlight or select cells that are disjointed. So if I wanted to pick out certain values in the data set but not get all of them, I could hold Control and kind of cherry pick the values that I want. Okay. So this will highlight, which highlight is really like a way to select cells that are, they can be adjacent, but are disjointed, if you will, disconnected. Is that okay? All right, now if we hold down Shift and click, this just is a kind of maybe a faster way than using the Shift and the arrows. It will highlight all the cells in between where the cursor was and where you clicked. Now, if you go vertically, it's a column. If you click to the right or left, it's a row. And if you are diagonal from where the cursor was, you get the entire table or array that contains kind of like as far over left and right from where you started and as far up and down as you started, right? So we'll highlight all cells between where cursor is and where you click. Okay, there you go. Next up, basic calculations. A spreadsheet can perform math. So let me just pick two random numbers. How about, I don't know, really doesn't matter. What's today's date? Today is 12/7. So let's take the number 12, let's take the number 7. I'm just going to list them there for us to see. What if I wanted to do some operations with 12 and 7? Okay, so I can type here. I'm going to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So I can type 12 plus 7, right? I can type that, but it doesn't do it. If I want it to perform that calculation, I have to put an equal sign in front. If I put an equal sign, then the spreadsheet knows you want me to solve this little math sentence, and it will do it for you. So there you go. That's 12 plus 7. What if I want to do 12 minus 7? Do I type 12 minus 7? Oh, nope. What do I have to do? I got to type something before I do that, right? I have to hit equal and then do 12 minus 7. Okay. Oop, I don't know what that just did. 1 minus 4 equal 12 minus 7. There must be a formatting thing. Format. Make that a number. There you go. My cell somehow was in a different format than a number format. Almost like a date. I don't know. Okay. So that's add, subtract. Let's do multiply. So what if I want to do 12 times 7? What if I want to do 12 divided? Notice I'm pressing equal before. The divide is just the forward slash. So 12 divided by 7. There you go. Okay. Another little tip. If you got a decimal and you want to change the amount of decimal places you show or don't show, you can click right here. You can kind of increase or decrease the number of decimal values that you show. So that's kind of maybe increasing the accuracy you're trying to provide or precision and decreasing it. So, okay. So I've got two random numbers, and now I just showed you how you can. I didn't need to have them typed here, right? I didn't. I just wanted to kind of know what numbers am I working with. But I added them, subtracted them, multiplied them, and divided them. So you can use a cell like a little calculator. Cool? Now, the next thing, instead of using numbers, we can still use math formulas with a cell reference. That means instead of stating explicitly in the cell when I type, so let's say equal, I'm going to do a calculation. Instead of saying I want to use the number 12, okay, I can come over here and I can click on the cell that contains the value. So I could say, hey, I want to add whatever is in N15 to whatever is in N16. Let's add those two numbers. Okay, so I'm referencing cells. Get the same result, but the cool thing here is if I change that 7 to an 8, watch this 19 when I press enter. That number changed, this one did not. So by using a cell reference, our spreadsheet becomes dynamic. I have some cells that can be looking at others and adjusting or updating instantly when something changes. So what if this number now was no longer 8? 8 people are coming to the party. No, wait, one more person said they can come. Now we have 9 people. We can make that update, and then everything else would kind of adjust accordingly. So isn't that nice? All right, so that is the idea of using a cell reference. We're definitely going to have to talk more about cell references, but that's really, really simple. So let's kind of do the addition, subtraction with all of them with these numbers. So now I'm going to have subtraction, right? So equals, and then that cell, I'm just clicking on it, so minus that cell. So literally, I just hit equal, and then it knows when I click on a cell, it'll automatically insert the cell name for me. I hit minus, and it's kind of ready for me to type or select a cell again. I could, if I hit minus something else, I could type a number, or I could select a cell. Okay, and it'll just, whatever cell you click on, it generates that name of that cell for you. Okay, so now we've got the difference of those cells. Let's get the product of those cells. So it's going to be click that one times click on this one, Now we'll get the product. And now let's get the quotient. So this one divided by this one. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And I'm going to decrease the number of decimal places that are showing there. So 1 1/3. All right, so hopefully you can see that, if I make that 7, everything matches, right? But this way, if that number changes, I get another RSVP back and kind of find out, hey, the data's changing, right? Other things that I've got trying to calculate and figure out going on based on these numbers will update for me where I got to go back and do it all over again, right? So pretty cool. All right, so we got with numbers, and here we got with cell references. So with numbers, with cell references. All right. We're going to kind of scoot down to the left for the next part. Okay, for the next part, we're going to talk about formulas. These are formulas that the program already has kind of memorized, stored, and it will kind of do for you. Okay, and that we've got several that we're going to go through. Okay, so obviously we could add a bunch of numbers, right? We could just plus, 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 plus. But there is a formula that's been created inside the spreadsheet that if we just use a word, we can kind of tell it what we want to do with the data set. And selecting a whole data set is pretty easy if you remember using Control and Shift, kind of from the beginning of a data set, and we can snap and highlight the whole thing. Okay, so the way this works is if I wanted to add all these numbers in the first data set, I can press equal, and then I can type the word sum, because that is a programmed word in this Google Sheet. And so actually there's a lot of other formulas that also kind of start with sum. We're not going to get into those, but here's just a basic sum, and just the sum of a series of numbers and or cells. It's just going to add them up for me. So I'm going to select that, and it has an open parenthesis. And inside here we could list exact values, like think of the control key. We could get it to sum, a very explicit list of values. I'm going to close that parenthesis and enter. Or if we wanted to, I'm going to come up here. So that cell, remember, whatever, maybe I didn't say this in the video yet, the cell will display its value. But up in the formula bar, you can see what you entered. Right? I didn't type 83. I said find the sum of those things. But I want the sum of the whole data set. So I'm just going to delete. I highlighted and deleted. Hit the delete key on my keyboard. Delete all those. So I want to select the entire data set. Okay. So I'm going to put my cursor on the first value. I'm just going to click. So that's kind of sitting there blinking. I'm going to click, and it's got the C4, the first value, but I'm going to hold down Shift and Control right now. So holding down Shift is going to allow me to highlight when I move my cursor. Holding down Control at the same time is going to allow me to, with one press of the down button, kind of jump to the very end of this data set. I don't know why it's not doing it. Something's going on. Let's start over. Equal sum, open parenthesis. I'm going to click here, Control and Shift and down. There you go. It's being weird. So now I've got the sum of that range, and make a note of the format that it does when you name a range of cells that's all inclusive. It lists the first cell and the last cell in the range, and it puts a colon between them. That's how we name or refer to a range of values, a continuous range of values. Okay, so I can close the parenthesis, and that's the formula, the sum of those values, and it'll just add them all up. So if you added all these numbers, you get 512. Pretty cool. All right, the next thing, we're going to calculate the mean. I don't know if you know what a mean is, but the mean, median, and mode are all measures of central tendency. We got all these numbers, we're trying to figure out, where's the middle of these numbers? Okay. Well, mean is the one where we add them all up and divide by how many there are. Actually, I'm gonna do something I didn't do yet. I'm gonna insert. You can actually insert another row. If I click on here, it'll insert the row above the one I selected. So I left clicked on row 29. I'm going to right click and say insert one row above, and I'm going to say quantity of values. Like how many numbers are there? I'm going to teach you another one. So I'm going to equal, and there's another formula that's designed to simply count. So I can do count. It says the number of numeric values in a data set. So I'm going to say count, and then I'm going to click on the first, Control and Shift to go to the end, close my parenthesis, and it just counts the number of values. So there's 23 values in that data set. Now the mean, we're not going to do it this way, but I will say it's traditionally taking the sum and dividing by the number of values, right? That is indeed the mean. But that required two different formulas, right? And then dividing those two formulas. So it's like three, right? I used the sum, then I used the count, and then I did the divide. You can get all of that with one word. They've already programmed it to be average. So average is in here. It's one of the already programmed words, and it gives the numerical average value in a data set. And mathematically, average is what we call the mean. So I'm going to open parenthesis, click on the top value, Control Shift, click down, close my parenthesis, and there you go. So same number, right? All right. Now mean is actually average when it comes to the programmed word, but median is when they're all in order from smallest to biggest. That gives you the middle number. So I could try to reorder these, and there is an easy way in a spreadsheet to do that, but without even having to do that, maybe I don't want to do that. I don't want to reorder the shuffle, kind of reshuffle the order, if you will. It'll kind of do it for me. It'll look at them in order from smallest to biggest or biggest to smallest and pick out what number is right in the middle. And the word is simply median. So we're just going to say equal median and highlight the entire range again. And boom, it tells me that if they were in order from smallest to biggest, that 22 is the middle number. Okay. Now mode is the number that occurs more often than any other number. So if I say equal mode and go searching, 17 occurs more often than not. I don't know how many times it occurs. Let's see, there's 3 of them. I think that's it. So there's 3 of them. So it must be that none of the other numbers occur more than 3 times, if there's any repeats. Okay, max is simply the biggest number in a range. Min is the smallest. I mean, I could have said biggest, smallest, but those are the programmed words. Max is supposed to return the largest value. Min records, min, I gotta type the word min first, will return the smallest number in the data set. So now if you had a very big data set, that'd be hard to go scouring and remembering the numbers you've seen. So this is pretty handy. You could scour through 100,000 values and boom, pick out the biggest number or the smallest number. Range is not a programmed word. If I type range, equal range, it's not there. Okay? So what I can do is just take the max minus the min. And if the max and min ever adjust, I'm using the cell reference, so if they adjust, my range will adjust. I'm not going to say 33 take away 11 because that, it could change, right? So there you go. That is the idea of using a formula, knowing that there are programmed words and calculations where all you have to do is know the name. So you hit equal, type the name, and then in parentheses, you list the data set. Okay? All right. Next up is a really fun one. What if we wanted to repeat all those formulas we just did, the sum, the number of values, all that, for the second data set right next to us? We can actually copy all of these formulas to the right with this little fill handle. Now we can do them one at a time. If I get that little square and pull it over to the right, something really cool is happening. Okay? Watch this. A traditional copy and paste. Let's take the mean one. Think you copy, right? I'm going to highlight, Control C to copy, and then I'm going to go to the cell here, and I'm going to click up here in the formula bar, and I'm going to hit Control V to paste. And when I paste, I generally get the exact same thing I copied, right? And I did that time. You notice this is 22.26, and this is 22.26. Okay. Well, something's off, right? And okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking, why is that? These are supposed to be the same. They're the same length. They're both 23 unit numbers long. Okay, but this is different, and this is, these were different. These are the same. They should be different. The average of this list should not be the average of this list. When I copied, the formula's the same. It's taking the average of the same set. but I want it to learn to adjust the formula as I pull it over to the side to adjust it. And if you see the first one, while this one was taking the average, finding the sum of this data set, when I used that copy fill handle to the right, it adjusted the column name. So as I move right and left, that cell reference auto adjusts based on how many cells I move. So if I pull it over one cell to the right, it's going to adjust my formula, my column header, by one cell to the right. Pretty cool. Now, sometimes that actually becomes a problem for us, and we'll kind of look at that later. So if I did a traditional copy-paste, I don't get that. So you can just pull that fill handle over. Now, do you have to do them one at a time? You don't. This is also pretty cool. You can grab a whole set, even though these are all different formulas, it'll follow the pattern. If I use this fill to say, hey, everything that's here, we're going to copy the pattern of the formula in the cell reference you used and adjust it accordingly. So if you copy it to the right one, we'll use the same formulas you had, but adjust those columns by 1 unit to the right. Okay, and so I've got a median. The reason why I have a mode as an NA is because there must not be a number that occurs more often than the others. So that's possible that you just don't have a mode. I've got my biggest number, I've got my smallest number, and the difference between those two right there is my range. So you now have seen the idea of using a fill handle. I'm going to use it one more time though. You saw a formula and you saw me use it. So I'm going to use it for a pattern. What if I simply wanted to number my rows, because this doesn't start at number 1, and I just wanted to see these kind of count off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, how many values do I have, right? So 1, 2, 3. I could sit there and this would take some time. Well, if I begin, if I put a number here, I could use the copy fill down handle, right? Oh, but it's all ones. I didn't want that. I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo. I want it to kind of learn that there's a pattern here to count. So if I highlight the first 2, it'll see this and it can predict the pattern of increasing by 1. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's try. What if I had 2, 4? What if we counted off by evens? Would it understand that? It does. 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? There you go. Pretty cool, huh? So I'm going to go back and just say 1, 2, and I'm going to copy fill down the pattern of increasing by 1. And now I've just got like an instance count. I'm going to change that to be centered up. Okay, so that just kind of counts off what value. So that's my 5th value and my 6th value, etc. So kind of cool. So now we've used the fill handle a couple times. You've seen it maybe just to identify and kind of pick up and repeat a pattern. So, all right, we've already talked about a cell reference as well. That was kind of over here, like when I chose to add these two numbers but not type in 12 and 8. I chose to reference their cells. So if I change or one of those values changes, these values, the math updates. That was a cell reference. Okay. Another example of a cell reference was when I came over here and I typed a word, a programmed word, to do a formula like sum or count or average. What went in the parentheses was me referencing or referring to the cells that I wanted to have that formula calculated. So they are considered relative cell references because they have the ability to update. When we did the fill handle and we went to the right, so I am copying and filling. Okay, so when I wrote this formula, I didn't say that it had to be C4 to C26. I referenced C4 to C26, and that is what I wanted. But I did it in a way that when I copied, it would be able to adjust. Okay? See, there's another way to kind of refer to these cells so that it knows that if I ever copy or paste or kind of, use that fill handle, that it's the exact value or the exact cell, and I don't mean for it to ever adjust. I don't want it to be a relative cell reference. I want it to be an absolute. Absolutely, that is the cell I want. It is not just relatively grab these values above, but it is absolutely this is the explicit range that I want. And if I copy this formula to the side, you need to use that, you use those same cells. Now, sometimes we write formulas where some of the values are absolute and some are relative. Okay, so let's try to do a little bit of this. So let's see. Yeah. Okay. So we're really not going to get it to the end, but here let's just kind of use our fill handle. Okay, we'll go ahead and get this completed right now. So these columns, what I wanted you to do is to kind of copy and fill down the formula where I'm adding, right here, like the first values. I want us to add the first value in data set 1 and the second value, or the first value in data set 2. So just kind of find the sum of those values that are there side by side. So how would I do that? I would hit equal, right? I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to type the numbers. I'm just going to reference. I want this cell here that's kind of 2 to the left, plus I want this cell that's kind of 1 to the left. I want you to add those up. Okay, and so this now formula is really more of a relative formula. It kind of says, hey, add the 2 cells that are to your left. And so if I copy that down, what I copied down is a formula that says, hey, add the 2 cells to your left. Well, these aren't to the left of that, right? Because this is lower. So it's these 2 that are to the left. And if you look at what it did, it adjusted that. It went down from row 4 to row 5, right? Originally, I said add the values in row 4, and when I pulled it down, it adjusted to say row 5. Pretty cool, right? Now, let's just pull that all the way down. So there you go. Now I have a new data set that represents the sum of all those. All right? How about you try doing the product of those? So what would I do? I would take this value and hit times this value. And then I would just fill that down. I'm getting a lot of decimals, so I'm going to decrease the number of decimals showing. What if I wanted to double all the values in data set 1? In that case, I might just go ahead and use a number, a constant, like times 2. And so this says, hey, double this cell over here. That is, 1, 2, 3, 4 to your left. So take the cell 4 to your left and double it. And if I pull that down, it's going to do the same thing. The formula is really, hey, take the cell that's 4 to your left, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 18, and double it. So we can do that with all of them. We pull that down. Getting the idea? Now this is the one where things are going to be a little different. This says to take D1 and multiply it by the average of D2. Well, let's see if we can figure this out. So I want this value in data set 1 times the average of D2. See, the average of D2 is the mean. That's the 0.63. So I'm going to click on that. Now, I don't want to type 0.63 because what if something changed? I kind of like this idea that it's dynamic. Plus, that's what I'm trying to teach you something else. So I want to refer to the cell of, D30. Okay, that's where it sits. I'm going to go ahead and decrease the number of decimals. It's kind of a lot. All right. Now, if I pull that down, it kind of looks like it's working. I'd have to kind of sit and think, is that times 0.063? Is that? I don't know. If I pull it down far enough, I might start to kind of see a pattern that doesn't look right. I don't think I'd expect taking 0.063 and multiplying by each of these numbers to start getting a bunch of zeros. In fact, the only way to get 0 from a product is to have a 0. So something is off, right? Something's not working. This is definitely not right. What's happening, we can kind of discover and look at our formula, not just at the original, because that one worked, but we click on maybe the next one down, and click on the formula bar to help the spreadsheet kind of highlight and show you what's going on. If I click on that, it'll highlight the cells that are being used. So this cell is supposed to multiply this value, which looks good so far. I wanted the next value in the data set 1, and I wanted that to multiply by the average. Well, it's highlighting this cell, and look over here, that's the median, that's not the average or the mean. Do you know what happened yet? Let's take a look at the next one. Here, it's getting the next value in data set 1 and multiplying by the mode. So I started with the median, the next cell did the median, or started with the mean, sorry. The next one did the median, the third one's doing the mode. Maybe take a guess what the next one's going to do, right? This one's using the max, and the next one's using the min, and and the next one's using the range, and the next one is using, this is the first 0, is using this value, which is empty. It's basically a numerical value of 0. And then each one after is just going to keep moving down. So hopefully you're getting the idea of the problem. The problem is that I pulled this down. While it's really awesome that the spreadsheet understands that I want to kind of get the next value in my data set, it's not so great that it didn't understand that I wanted each of those to get multiplied by the average, and I don't want that cell to move. I want it to stay put. So let's go back to the original. So here's what we can do. You can use a $sign to lock down the thing that you don't want to adjust or change. Now, I'm going to pull this formula down, which is not going to really require that I get a number. Ooh, actually, I already made a mistake. Let's fix it. I didn't even catch that. Oh, no, never mind. That's right. I didn't make a mistake. Okay, I said average D2. Sorry. Okay, so I just want this cell to stay locked. But what the tendency is for, as I pull it down, for this to move down and down and down. And as it moves down, what's happening is the cell names were becoming D31, D32, D33. The D was fine, but it was the row number changing that I didn't want to change. So if I want to lock down that row 30, I can put the $sign symbol in front of the 30. And by putting that in front, when I pull down, it locks the 30. So now click on any one of them down below, and you'll see that it's getting the correct value from dataset 1 and multiplying it by the average of dataset 2. Because even though I pulled it down, I had told it through the use of what's an absolute reference. I'm not absolutely referencing the whole cell. I'm absolutely saying it has to be a row 30. Okay, I'll point that out because we're going to do something else here in a second in this column, but try pulling this formula to the right 1 unit, and you'll see, and then let's just see what happens. You'll see that this moved because it was a relative cell reference. It was kind of saying, hey, take the value that's what? From here, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to your left. So now from here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to your left. So now it's this value from data set 2 when I was trying to get data set 1 in that formula, right? And then as I pulled to the right, it had been taking this cell, which was in column D, and I pulled the pattern, the formula to the right 1, so it pulled that over 1 because I didn't lock down the name of D30. I kind of just locked down the 30. So that's kind of a hybrid of referencing a cell, D30, where one of the things, okay, the row was absolute, and the other, the column, was relative. So if you want it to be an absolute cell reference, where nothing can change, you need a $sign in front of both. Sometimes we use it on one or the other, sometimes on both, sometimes on neither. It depends on how you're trying to copy, fill, etc. Okay, so if I had it on both and I pulled it to the right, I just want you to see that. Now, the first value didn't do that, so that one moved over, but this one stayed completely put. It didn't move over, and it won't move down either. So all these, you'll see that I still have that 0.063 no matter what. Okay, so I'm highlighting all those and pressing the delete key on my keyboard just to get rid of those because I am going to do something different here. But let's take this and pull it straight down, and that is an absolute cell reference. So we could make a note: use the $sign to kind of lock the choice of a row or column or both within your cell reference. Okay, there you go. All right, next up, we're going to do one more. This says take D2, data set 2 value, and multiply it by the mode of D1. So I'm going to equal, take that value times the mode of D1, which is right there. Now, I want to be able to pull this down. So as I pull it down, I don't want to get then the max and the min and the range. So I want to stay on row 32, even as I pull this formula down, right? So I at least have to have a dollar sign in front of the 32, knowing that I'm going to pull this formula in the vertical direction. And I believe I'm good, but I can just randomly grab one down below and click in the formula bar to kind of make sure it looks like it's doing what I want. Is it getting D2? Yep. Is it multiplying by the mode of D1? Yes. And if you can kind of click quite a ways down the list and it's still following the pattern that you intended, then you feel pretty good that you got it right. Well, that is a wrap on having completed this. So to turn this in, you are going to do a couple things. We're going to put our name right here. Okay. And then we are going to turn on something that shows what you typed in the boxes instead of showing the results. So right here it says when finished. We're going to go to the view menu up above, view. Then we're going to go to show. And then we're going to say show formulas. Now you can see that instead of seeing the resulting value of each cell, I get to see what was typed into it. So right down here, I can see the formulas. All these cells, I can see that it was a formula and not a number. Okay? Make sure your name is filled in like I said, and then we're going to go to print, which is under file, print. And we want to make sure this fits on one page. I believe that landscape is going to be best. We've got more width and height to this, so if I did portrait, it might squeeze it the most. But you need to, we don't want it to wrap onto multiple pages. This is what we definitely do not want. Okay, whether in portrait or landscape, we want this to be a one-page document. Okay, so let's do landscape, but under scale, you need to say fit to width, and make sure it's all on one page. Notice I can't scroll up and down, there's no more pages. Once you've got that selected, you can go ahead and hit next. It brings you to our dialog box. Mine's kind of on a custom scale. It's remembering something from before, so I didn't mean to scale it down smaller. It should already fit on one page. You probably need this just back to 100. Okay. And the only printer that's probably in your drop-down is an HP Color LaserJet. That's the one you want, and you are going to hit print. That's the end.